I remember the exact hour, not because I looked at the clock, but because it was always the same hour, 3 in the morning. That hour has a personality of its own. It's not night, it's not morning. It's a strange space between what went wrong yesterday and everything that could go wrong tomorrow. I would lie there, staring at the dark ceiling, while my mind went to work on its own, without asking permission. The car could break down. The computer could die. Hijab could disappear. The dog could get sick. Funny how, at 3 in the morning, the brain never thinks of good things. I never thought, what if tomorrow is calm? No. At 3 a.m., the brain only works like a lawyer for disaster. It wasn't one fear at a time. It was everything at once, stacked, as if someone had opened every drawer in my head and dumped the contents onto the bed with me. The worst part was knowing that if even one of them did, I had no margin for error, no cushion, no space, no plan B. Sometimes I got out of bed, not to be productive, not to fix anything, just to avoid lying there with my body still and my mind running a marathon. I went to the kitchen, drank a glass of water, pretended it helped. I looked out the window. Empty street, street lights glowing, no movement, the world asleep, and me awake, trying to solve problems that didn't even exist yet. Back then I didn't call it fear. I called it responsibility. It sounded adult. It sounded serious. It even sounded respectable. Now I know. It was fear. It took me many years to realize something important. I wasn't afraid of losing money. I was afraid of running out of options. Because you can lose money and recover. You can lose income and rebuild. But when you lose options, you're trapped. Back then, I thought freedom meant earning more. Today, I know that was naive. Freedom isn't how much you make. Freedom is how long you can survive without asking permission. Funny thing is, I spent years trying to climb higher, when all I really needed was to step a little farther away from the edge. But no one teaches you that. They just teach you to run faster. There's something curious about financial fear. It doesn't introduce itself as fear. It shows up as shoulder pain, a tight jaw, a tiredness that never quite leaves. I thought I was aging early. Now I know. It was my body collecting a debt my bank statement never showed. Funny thing, I've never seen an account summary that says interest paid in sleepless nights, but I paid it. Today, I'm over 60 years old, but back then, I genuinely thought I was doing fine. I said it with confidence. I had a steady job, I paid my bills, I didn't owe anyone money. Compared to many people, I even looked fortunate. From the outside, it looked like stability. From the inside, it was survival. Every decision cost energy. Every expense came with guilt. Every surprise felt like a personal threat. I lived defending my financial life the way someone plays an entire game just trying not to lose. Never trying to win. Never trying to build. Just trying to hold on. People around me thought I was calm. "You're so relaxed," they'd say. I would smile. They didn't know that calm and silence are not the same thing. I didn't talk about money because I didn't want to be a burden. Now I understand. I didn't talk about it because I didn't want to admit how scared I really was. There's a kind of loneliness only people living on the edge understand. I did everything I was taught to do. I showed up on time. I didn't miss work. I didn't complain. I was the kind of person my boss called reliable, and the bank called a good payer. I paid my bills on time and thought that meant I was mature. Today, I smile at that. Because maturity isn't paying bills. Maturity is being able to breathe when something goes wrong. And I couldn't. I realized too late that handling life isn't living. Handling life is just not falling. It's like spending years on a tightrope, staring only at the next step, never lifting your head to see where you're actually going. Sunday afternoons were the worst. There were no bills due that day, but the entire week was already coming toward me. I pretended to rest, watched television without watching, thought about work that hadn't even started yet. Rest without margin isn't rest. It's just a pause between two anxieties. I remember the grocery store. I became very good at excuses. If that paid money, I'd have retired early. Busy week. Let's do it next time. We'll see. We'll see became my financial plan. I don't recommend it. The most exhausting part wasn't the lack of money. It was the constant need to justify. Justify to others, and worse, to myself. Next month will be better. Right now isn't the time. I'll deal with it later. The problem is that later becomes a habit, and one day you realize you've built an entire life around postponement. I postponed rest. I postponed calm. I postponed choice. All for a future that never arrived. It took me decades to understand this, but my life didn't change when I earned more money. It changed when I stopped living at the edge. The day everything began to shift was the day I saw a simple number in my account. 10,000. It's not a pretty number. It doesn't impress anyone. No one takes photos of it. No one celebrates it at a restaurant. There was no party, no champagne. I didn't tell anyone. But that night, I slept was strange. Nothing outside had changed. The world was the same. The problem still existed. But my body reacted as if it had received good news for the first time in years. My breathing slowed. My chest loosened. My mind went quiet. I didn't become rich, but I stopped living on alert. The most interesting part wasn't the night. It was the next day. An absolutely ordinary day. Simple coffee, noisy street, no good news. And yet, something felt different. I wasn't rushed on the inside. For the first time in many years, the day didn't feel like an enemy. Woke up expecting that familiar sensation, the tight chest, the urgency, the tension. It didn't come. That scared me a little. Not because something bad had happened, but because for the first time, a problem didn't need to be solved immediately. For the first time, there was space between the problem and the decision. And that space changes everything. Before the 10,000, every problem felt like a catastrophe. A warning light on the dashboard felt like a sentence. After the 10,000, it became an inconvenience. Still annoying, still unpleasant, but not a catastrophe. Not because the problem disappeared, but because the fear disappeared first. The greatest gift of that money wasn't spending it. It was knowing it was there. Suddenly, I didn't have to accept everything. I didn't have to decide in panic. I didn't have to live in fear. I gained time. And time is luxury. When you live without margin, every decision is urgent, and urgent decisions here almost always bad ones. With margin, I started saying simple things. Let me think about it. I'll get back to you. Not right now. Those 3 sentences changed my life more than any raise ever did. They only exist when fear isn't in control. If I could go back in time and talk to the anxious man I was, I would say just this. Stop chasing a lot before you secure enough. The system convinces you that peace comes later, after the promotion, after the raise, after the win. It doesn't. Peace lives in the margin. I used to think I had spent money, but money was the smallest part of the loss. I did the math one day. That 10,000 I didn't save in my 30s because I thought I needed a better car to impress people who didn't even like me. If it had been invested, would be worth something close to $160,000 today. And that's when I understood something that hurts to admit. I didn't spend $10,000 on that car. I spent $150,000 of my freedom, paid with years of life I will never get back. 10,000 isn't for showing off. It's not for impressing anyone. It's for sleeping better, thinking better, choosing better, treating the people you love better. It doesn't change your life from the outside in. It changes it from the inside out. Now, at over 60, I understand something simple. Money is stored time, and time doesn't accept refunds. The body slows down, energy fades, tomorrow gets shorter. And that's when you realize that freedom isn't doing everything. Freedom is not living in fear of the next problem. Aging without margin is aging with fear. Fear of the body failing, fear of depending on others, fear of being a burden. After 60, you understand that. Independence isn't doing everything alone. It's having choice. Don't save to be the richest person on the street. Save to own your mornings, to wake up without a tight chest, to choose without panic, to live without always defending yourself. Start small, but start. Because the person who learns to protect 10,000 learns something much bigger: how to live without.